Hey, this is Alex with the Unbiased Trailblazer podcast. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Unbiased Blazers. There's a link in our bio for our Discord server where you can join in on the discussions, give us your takes, give us comments, or just join in on a podcast. Now, let's get to the show. Rip City, baby.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Liftoff and the clock has started.
What is up, Rip City? This is episode 22 of the Unbiased Trailblazer podcast. Me and Fawad are here, and in just a little bit, we're going to have a couple other people join in and join on the conversation. But for right now, it's just me and Fawad. Mike wasn't feeling good, so we're running at it again. How you doing, Fawad?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I just realized we're on a 3-game win streak, and it's beautiful. This was a good week of basketball, and I'm excited to talk some basketball with you.
Yeah, a lot of off days this week, so more time to think about ball and talk about Blazers.
Exactly. So with this podcast, it's going to be a little different than normal. Me and Fawad are going to talk for a little bit. We're going to talk about the last 3 games we had, and then talk about Larry Nance. And there's a couple things we want to talk about, and then we're going to bring in a couple people to join in that missed out on the last listener podcast that still wanted to. So we'll have a couple people come in and talk that wasn't on the last one. So just to get started, we're going to make it quick. We had 3 games since our last podcast, and actually the last podcast, one of those games was going while we were recording, so that was the Toronto game. We ended up winning 118 to 113. Fawad, how did you feel that game was?
I liked it. Toronto's a decent team, even though I think they were missing OG that game. Oh no, he did play. All right,
Yeah,
but still, they're still a good team. They're not like a contender or anything, but they're still in that hunt for the playoff race. I see them getting maybe like a 9 seed, so they're not a bad team. And I was happy, and we were at home, so I expected us to win, but I was happy that we did, and it wasn't like it was a free win or anything. We played well and we earned it.
It was
Sorry,
also the
I'm getting a
return of.
call. I'm really sorry.
You're
Just
good.
one
You're
second.
good. I'll go. It was the return of Gary Trent. We got to see Gary Trent for the first time in Portland, and it was a face-off between Powell and Gary Trent. Statistically, I would say Gary Trent did better, but if you look at the actual stats itself, Gary Trent shot 16 times, and Powell only shot 9 times. Gary Trent had 16 points and Gary Trent had 18 points and Powell had 12 points. So statistically, Gary Trent, and honestly, Gary Trent did play good. He didn't play terrible. But I think a lot of us can agree we got the better end of that trade with Gary Trent going to Toronto and us getting Norman Powell. So it was good to see him. He made some big plays. CJ made a couple plays in his face that, to seal the game at the end, and was having a good time with him. It was good to see. But that was a fun game to watch. We're going to move on to Chicago. We won 112 to 107. This was exciting. We started off not good, and it looked like it was going to be one of those blowout games where we weren't going to fight back, and we were all pleasantly surprised with the fight that we had. I mean, at one point, if I remember right, we were down 15, I think, and we kind of just after halftime just kind of stuck it to them and made our comeback. Our defense looked actually really good in that second half, and Zach LaVine was having a crazy shooting night until the end, and then he missed a couple key shots. But Lillard had a good game. He had 10 assists. He had 22 points. The biggest thing for me was that game, it seemed like we put emphasis with Nurkic. We came out right off the bat going to Nurkic and letting him do the work on offense, and it seemed like it kept him engaged for most of the game. And I think that was probably his best game of the season, if I remember correctly. I would say that was probably his best game. He had 18 points, 12 rebounds, and really he held the paint pretty good. He didn't let Yeah, Tony Bradley had 6 points, and it was a lot of just Zach LaVine making some crazy difficult shots. And in the first half, DeMar DeRozan was playing pretty good, but then in the second half, not so much. This is also a return game for Derrick Jones Jr. Um, I'm trying to think if he had any crazy highlights. I sounds like maybe you're here, Fawad.
Yeah, I don't think he had any huge highlights, maybe like one putback layup, but he's been
Oh, that's
playing
right.
really well this season. I don't think he played as well against us.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's sad to see him on another team because we all did like him and the energy he brought. But at least he's on a team that's getting some action. So, do you have anything you want to add on the Chicago game?
Yeah, there was so many positives all over. Starting with, like you said, Nurk, he was 8 for 13, 18 points, 12 rebounds. Great game. And most importantly, as a team, we had I think we were down, or how much were we down at one point?
I want to
20
say we were at
probably.
least, yeah, I was gonna say at least 15, but I think it was like 20.
It was at least 19 and might have hit. It was, yeah, I think it was. I don't know. I think it was 21 in the first half, and then we were 17 was our biggest in the second half in the third quarter. Um, yeah. So for us to be down that much is bad, obviously, but then for to come back and then win that game, I think it showed a lot of heart and a lot of effort, and that's something that's been missing from especially our starting lineup this season. I think our bench has had that mostly consistently, but our bench has been lacking effort. I mean, her starters have been lacking effort a little bit, but we saw Nurk play with heart. Um, Dame started to hit a couple deep shots at the end as well. I think he had one or two. Um, and then the other thing that I don't remember if I noticed specifically in this game, but I've been noticing like little things over the last several games. Robert Covington has been playing a lot better than the start of the season. In this game, he shot 4 for 7 from the field, 2 for 5, but then he had 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks. Just a good all around game. And I feel like he's been a lot more engaged in at the start of the season. There were maybe some rumors that he wasn't fully bought in at the start, but I feel like he might be now. And one other small thing that I noticed about him is that he's been driving in a little bit more, and then he's kind of creating either for the big man, whether that's Nurk, Zeller, or Nance, whoever he's playing with, or he's even like hit a couple like layups off the dribble, and I don't think we saw that much or at all last year even. So I was happy to see him kind of add that to his game. And then again, the all-around game, he had 3 assists. He was everywhere defensively. And then another positive, Larry Nance was amazing. 16 points, 6 for 9, 3 assists as well. Or sorry, yeah, 3 assists and 3 steals. So
Yes.
I don't even know how I don't have the words to describe how happy I am with his play lately. He's been everything we could possibly ask for when we did the trade, and I feel like a lot of what we talked about in that podcast, what we wanted to see from him and what we expected to see from him, is finally happening now. So I've been thrilled with him, and Chauncey said, I don't know if it was after this game or the one after, that he finally sees Nance as a small ball 5 that can also play the 4, and I totally agree that that is how he's maximized. And what that means for Zeller or Nurk, I'm a little bit concerned about, but we'll get into that a little bit later, I guess.
Yeah, we'll talk about Nance in just a little bit. And Zeller and Nurk. One trend we've seen these last 3 games is towards the end of the game, it's been that small ball 5 for Nance instead of Nurkic being in there. And that's something we're going to talk about in a little bit. But these last 3 games, to close out the games, Nance has been in instead of Nurkic at the end of the games. I believe the Philadelphia game, it was the same way. Actually, I know it was because there was an
Yeah.
issue, which we'll get to in a second. But no, Nance has been playing great. The crowd is loving him, chanting Larry. You know, when he's out there, we were so excited when we got him, and this is the exact reason why. And it's amazing to watch. So let's move to the last game. It was against Philadelphia. It was a revenge game for us. It was 118 to 111. We won that game, and kind of almost like the first time we played them. I guess Tobias Harris was in this game, but he wasn't the first game, and so was Embiid was also out. So it was one of those games where I felt like this is going to be a game where Nurk's going to kind of dominate because there's not. Well, I guess Drummond was there. Let me take that back. Forget what I said. Scratch that. Drummond took him to school the first game, so Lillard, I would say by far was his best game. Not only did he shot pretty well from three. He was 5 of 13. I think this is the game where he got 12 free throws, I believe. And
14.
that's 14. Okay. And made all 14 of them, and he scored 39 points, so he almost had a 40 piece. Honestly, there was pretty good defense even going on that whole game. One thing I want to say is Larry Nance played great like normal, but Little was bringing the energy so much that like you just can't help but be excited anytime he comes in because you know he's giving you 110%. Sometimes he makes some plays where you're like, trying a little too hard, but I would take those every once in a while for the effort that he puts in out there any day of the week. So Little had a pretty fun game to watch. I'm still just thinking about his dunk on Houston. That was a crazy dunk. But Philadelphia, that was a fun game to watch. It was a good game. It was pretty close for most of the game. Some questionable calls in our favor. I can admit it. I'm sure a lot of people can, but I don't think that had an outcome on the game. Early in the first half, it was an issue, but you can't blame a call back in the first or second quarter for losing at the end. So, how did you feel the
Yeah,
Philadelphia game was?
a couple questionable calls, especially in that first half. But the commentators for Philly, I don't know if you were listening to their end, but I was, and they were so salty, and they were just like crying the entire night, especially at the end of the game. I was getting mad listening to it. I know on Reddit I saw a couple other Blazers fans felt the same way. Um, yeah, the game overall, I think I liked what I saw. Like you said, Nasir Little was great. He brings so much energy, and even what you said, like sometimes he does try to do a little bit too much, but it's not like bad at all. Um, like he's just excited. He's helping where he can. He might take couple like a shot that he probably shouldn't be taking, but honestly, he hit one or two of those. So for now, I'm okay with him for him to keep shooting that. Like you said, Dame, he played well. I don't think he had a 30-point game yet this season, and then he jumped to almost 40 right off the bat with this game.
Yeah, right.
Um, but my one thing with this game, like you said, Embiid wasn't playing, and our defense was. I did like what I saw, but I always have issues. I don't want to sound too pessimistic, but I have issues taking like concrete things away from games where we're playing um injured teams or like really bad teams. So even though we did play well, I'm not putting too much weight into it um until I see it a little bit more consistently. And we still let Maxi. I guess Maxi has been playing well against every team, but we did let him have a good night, 28 and 9. Um, so I liked what I saw, but I don't put too much weight into it. We did what we were supposed to do, not too much more than that.
Yeah, I mean, someone's gonna have to make up for Embiid not being there, the scoring. So I'm glad that Nurkic kind of held Drummond in check. He didn't really do much in the first game. Drummond did a lot, so that was nice to see that. We're gonna talk about Larry Nance just a little bit before we get everybody in here, but one of the issues we saw was Nurkic at the end of this game had two fouls. I think they were pretty much back to back, if I remember right. And
I
Billups,
think within a minute or something.
yeah. I mean, it was quick. Billups pulled him and brought in Nance, and I don't know if it was Nurkic being frustrated with himself or if it's him being frustrated that he's getting pulled, but his emotions were showing, and he threw his mouthpiece. And in a pretty close game, that's a risky thing. Thankfully, the refs didn't see any of that, and I mean, we've seen Curry throw his mouthpiece before and get technical. So Lillard kind of came over and talked to him. Fawad, what did you take from that little scenario there?
I actually had to step away from the game like right when that happened. So when I came back and I saw people talking about like what just happened, I was I wasn't happy because I was concerned is what it was. Nurk's an emotional player, and if he, like you said, we don't know if he was mad at himself or mad at Chauncey for taking him out. But if it was at Chauncey for taking him out, that really concerns me because um, he has he needs to be encouraged, and he has a little bit of an ego. So if he feels like he's not being respected by the coaching staff, I think that could negatively affect his play moving forward. And it did. Nance has been finishing the game for like one or two games before that, and Nurk had kept playing well. So I was happy with that, but I feel like if we keep closing with Nance, even if that might be a better lineup, I don't know how Nurk will feel about that. I know Dame did talk to him after, which is good. And he said after the game that when he talked, like in his post game interview, that when he was talking to him, it was more like telling him to basically just to trust the system and trust that the help defender will be there, and he
Yep.
doesn't need to do too much. And if he didn't, he would have stayed in. So I think things like that is encouraging, and it's just showing how good of a leader Dame is. So right now, I'm not like I'm not in panic mode or anything like that, but it's just something I'm keeping my eye on, and then we'll see how it goes for the next few games.
Yeah, it's definitely something we're gonna want to keep our eye on, especially if he's having a good game and Billups still decides to pull him and put in Nance, which I honestly I don't see happening. I think Billups is smart enough to know that if Nurk is playing good and helping us to keep him in, but I would be afraid that if that did happen, that could Nurk could lose his mind, and we've seen him be upset before, so we don't want that. Um, do you have anything before we pause to get everybody in here?
Not really. I just wanted to continue on this topic for a second. We know Chauncey's a good communicator. He's talked about like how he's been in every role. He's been the star. He's been the role player. He's been at the end of the bench. So I have faith that he'll be able to communicate with Nurk. And Nurk already said that during the offseason that Chauncey's been like upfront with him, and there's like an open communication between what Chauncey expects and what Nurk wants. So I'm putting my faith in him, like with that for now. So I think that like it should blow over and it should end up being super positive that we have two elite big men that we can close with depending on the
Exactly.
matchup. So I'm not like I don't think it should be too big of an issue, but I just hope it's not. It's on my mind
One thing I know Lillard is very good about is pulling everybody together. I mean, it's it's
for
it's
sure.
been what this team has been about for the last 9-10 years since he's been here. Um, so if there's any team that I think can convince a player to truly put the team first, it's this team with Lillard, and time will tell if that does happen. But I trust Lillard, and I trust the team. I think that they can make it work as long as we keep winning. I don't see how it could be an issue. Um, with that, we're gonna pause here real quick. We're gonna get a couple people in here, and then we're gonna pick back up. So we will be back in just a second. Rip City, we are back. This is part 2 of episode 22. We got Jared and we got Rocky in here. They wanted to join the last listener podcast, and unfortunately I was stupid enough to schedule it on a game night, so they couldn't make it, but they are here now and we're excited to have them here. Jared, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Excited to be here.
We're happy you're here. What about you, Rocky? How you feeling?
I'm good, good. Glad to join in with you guys and get some different experiences and other others' perspectives. I do a lot of the spaces.
Yeah, and what Rocky's talking about, if you guys are listening and haven't taken part in it, on Twitter after the games are over, there's a spot where you can join spaces, and it's a pretty much just basketball talk with Blazer fans, and I think pretty much anybody can join it. But they just always talk about the game and things that are going on, and it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of cool people in there and sharing their experiences, and it always makes me jealous because everybody's talking about how they are just leaving the game and making me wish I was there. So but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I
we've
definitely
joined a
gotta
couple
get.
times. The Trailcasters guys have joined a couple times. Is really fun.
I'm glad I know about this now.
Yeah,
I'm definitely got to join.
It's a lot of fun, and it's I think what they do is I think it's like 15 minutes after game time or something like that, or after the game ends is when they usually open it up. It's a lot of fun, and you can hear some cool stories and views from people.
Yeah,
So
we do the pre-games as well sometimes, at least once a week, and will start those about an hour. Usually, if it's a 7 o'clock game, we usually start them about 6, and then the post games are always 15 minutes after the game.
yeah, and there's a good amount of people in there, so it's really easy to join. It's really easy to talk in there and listen, and it's pretty much like a live podcast. Essentially, is what it is. It's a good time. So if you guys want to join, it's on Twitter. Go for it.
Definitely.
We will. I think I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure how it works, but if we can share it when it's happening, we'll share it so it'll be on our Twitter so you guys can join it.
Yeah, if you follow us,
But with
it'll show up on your timeline that like we're in it. But I can
there you
pull
go.
up the person who starts it. Just give me a second, continue, and then I'll find it and
Sure.
see it.
So with all this being said, we're gonna hop into the podcast while Fawad looks it up.
It's Sheriff of PDX at
There we
Sheriff
go.
of PDX. So shout out to him.
Right on.
Yeah, so follow him anytime they start those spaces. It'll pop up for you, and it's super easy to join in, and it's a good time. But with that being said, we're gonna hop in. We're gonna jump right into what me and Fawad were last talking about before we paused to get you guys in here, and that was Larry Nance. How great he has been especially these last couple games.
Oh, buddy.
And
yes.
and the effect that it's going to have on Nurkic and Cody Zeller's minutes. So let's start off with you, Jared. How do you feel just in general Larry Nance has been overall and especially these last 3 games?
Well, I thought that trade, just like everyone said, that was probably the greatest and most silent pickup, during the offseason. And I thought, when you saw him in the first couple of games, it was like, okay, he's just adjusting, just like any new player would. But when you saw him spark up the last, 4 games, I mean, his energy is out there. He's feeling it. The crowd's chanting his name. He's collecting rebounds. He's trying to get deflections, steals, assists when it's possible. And so I think, seeing Billups, he made that comment from last game saying, hey, if we have to take Nurk out just to get Nance in to finish the game and close the game, then we will. And I think seeing that, will change the rotation a little bit with minutes. I think we obviously saw Cody did not play that much last game. And Nurk, of course, old big Nurk, he gets a little emotional at times. So he got frustrated being pulled out of there in that fourth quarter. And I think we're going to see a little bit about that. And I'm kind of worried if Nurk's going to adjust to that. I hope he does.
Yeah, that's that last game especially. We saw a little bit of emotion from him when he got pulled. So that's going to be something. And me and Fawad talked about that just a little bit ago. That's going to be something we're going to want to keep our eyes on. I think with Lillard and how this team has been for the last 9 years, this is one team that I can trust Lillard to rein Nurk in and be like, look, it's team first. It's not Nurk first, and we want to win. And unfortunately that's you sitting on the bench and Nance is out there, that's what's best for the team. So
right, and you saw him go up to Nurk when that happened to talk and chat with him about it. And I really hope, because I love Nurk. I've always been on the Nurk train. Got the Nurk fever still. So I'm really hoping he'll adjust and he'll still have a breakout season.
So do you think, before we move to Rocky, do you think this is going to make Zeller pretty much not playable anymore, and it's going to be more minutes for Nance that way, or how do you think that works out?
Yeah, I see Cody maybe getting 12 minutes a night, maybe even probably less, honestly. But yeah, it's definitely going to affect his minutes.
Okay. Now, Rocky, how do you feel about how Larry Nance has been over the season and these last couple games?
Well, again, I was also one of those that, at the beginning of the year, I was like, this is a solid pickup. I was super excited when they got him. I felt like it was one of the better low end budget moves that we've made in a couple of years.
For sure.
It's going to super push the needle, times 1,000, but it definitely gives a different adjustment to our defense. He's a guy, as everybody's seen, that is not afraid to call the veterans out. He's not afraid to get in CJ's face and tell him, "You're playing some shitty defense right now. You need to figure it out."
Exactly.
Um, we've seen him on more than one occasion get in guys' faces and tell them, "Look, you're jumping too fast, or you're not adjusting to the screen or the switch." And he just talks to them, and he makes sense. and and offensively, he's starting to get more involved, especially when a lot of the second unit guys are in there. Um, that dunk he had the other night at the end of the first quarter
Yep.
on that lob from
Amazing.
CJ was just nuts.
Do
I
you
mean, we
guys
haven't
think
seen
that was a
that.
lob? Do you think it was meant to be a lob?
Yes.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
it was straight out
Do
of
you think it
him
was an
for
air
him.
ball?
I don't know
Yeah,
if I've
it
ever
was
seen
straight
CJ
out.
do that.
I don't think I've ever seen CJ do that neither, but it was right for him. It was dead eye, dead eye.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Let me ask
And,
a
and
quick
I just
follow-up
think
to that.
his defensive approach, and the way, the energy that he brings to that second unit is something we haven't had in a while. We
No.
haven't had a good defender that can come in and push that second unit. And he likes to move up and down the court as well. He kind of gets that second unit moving a little faster than the normal ISO uh, front unit.
Yep.
Let me ask a quick follow-up to that then. So if we keep if we keep Larry Nance at the 5 more, and then obviously Zeller wouldn't play as much, what do you guys think that does to the backup 4 minutes? Is it still just going to be Larry Nance playing that as well and bumping his minutes up to like 30, 32 a game? Or is Nas going to slide up and we're going to go like extra small ball, or is Snell going to start playing more? What do you guys think should happen to
That's a
that?
good question.
And is it bad if we have like too small?
I
Rocky,
think
you
in
want to answer
some
this?
yeah, I think in some instances what we should do is um, again, a lot of people don't realize that some games, some stuff is based on, it's based on the teams you're playing and their personnel that are out
Yep.
on the floor.
Yep.
If you've got a team
Yeah,
that's
for
got
sure.
2 7-footers on the front line, you obviously got to have some kind of size. So you could put Larry at the 4 and maybe Nurk at the 5 with Dame and CJ and Norm, or Dame, CJ and Little, at the end of the game, so that you had more length, but you also have that size to combat, a Drummond or an Embiid, uh, any of the 7 foot type guys, Gobert, guys like that. You're going to have some size. So you can't necessarily go small ball 100%.
Right. Right. That makes sense. I mean, it
Yeah,
just depends on
definitely.
the other team's lineup. If they're going small ball, we'll probably go small ball. And just like Rocky said, if they're they got a 7-footer out there, we're gonna probably put Nurk out there and probably see Nance's minutes increase definitely 25 to 30. Especially how we've been winning at home. So that's what I think.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see, because at this point we have to get Nance in more. We have to get him more minutes because he's a major asset to our team. And if that means less minutes for, Rocco, or less minutes for Nurk a little bit, and maybe even not seeing Zeller as much, the way he's playing right now and the energy and like you said, the defense that he brings, it's needed, and it's what we need. So I think we're gonna see a shakeup here pretty soon, because we're winning right now and we want to keep winning, and you roll with the guys that are performing good for you.
Right.
And you got guys on expiring contracts that you're going to have to try to get something out of
Yep.
before the trade deadline.
Yep.
Right. That's the big question. Are they going to keep
It's a
Rocco or are
huge
they going to keep
question.
Nurk? Are they going to try to keep both?
I think
But then you have Ant.
I think there's no way that Rocco stays. I think Nurk stays, but I could see either thing happening.
With
I think
Nurkic,
Rocky.
I think it really depends on how
Yeah,
this
Alex,
season
go.
goes. If
Yeah,
we're
it depends
winning,
on if Miles Turner becomes available.
I mean, hey, if Miles Turner wants to come, I'll take Miles Turner.
I'd rather take Sabonis.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Sabonis would be
Maybe we can
amazing.
get both.
But does Indiana want Nurk in return if they're
That's
trying
the
to?
problem.
Because they'd probably be trying to put Sabonis at the center. So
Yeah,
Right.
that would be the problem.
Their
Fawad, I know.
problem would be would Kevin Pritchard deal with us?
I think that's the problem with most things. Fawad, I know you wanted to talk about Neil O'Shea and kind of the update that we've had, so I'll let you go ahead and take the O'Shea situation.
sure. So I'm not sure if you guys have heard, but Jason Quick was on like a radio show or something, and he said, first he said like last week that he thinks O'Shea is almost definitely going to be fired after this or let go or something. But then I think that's going to happen anymore, and he thinks that more than likely O'Shea is going to be staying.
Yeah, after what Jason said at the end of last week, too good. And I think what the NBA did with the sudden that came out after Neil was under, I think that kind of helped solidify him keeping his job.
Agreed.
At least for the time being. It made it harder for. I think Jody wants to get rid of him. The problem is if she doesn't have a quote unquote legitimate reason to get rid of him, now she's still got to pay him because he's under contract for I think another year, maybe 2 years. I know we just gave him another extension like last year, I think. I don't remember if that was through this season or through next season.
I think it's until 2024, so 2 seasons after this.
Correct.
Yeah, which is even worse. So it's kind of hard to pay a GM that's not even with you anymore, and then have to pay another one. Now you're essentially paying 2 guys for one job.
Yeah, it's not a good situation, and it's not something that we've had to deal with in a while. So it's kind of it's a weird area that we've been in. How do you feel about it, Jared?
I was digging on some of the history just with GMs, for the Blazers organization, and I was kind of expecting Neil would be gone before the NBA draft. Honestly, just right after they got rid of Stotts, I thought Neil was next. I've met Neil once, and he just has that type of personalities where when all these reports started coming out, I was like, yeah, I could see that. I can definitely see that in his personality that he probably rubbed some people the wrong way.
For
Maybe
sure.
said
Yeah, I don't
some
think
things.
anyone
Yeah,
was surprised.
yeah. I don't think anyone was surprised, and when just like Rocky said, I think last week when they announced this like protection for executives and GMs, and they were like, "Oh, I think Neil's being set up." I saw a couple stories like that. They probably don't. Jody doesn't want the Trailblazers to look bad. If they have good evidence and they have something to prove, and they think it's just going to be positive, no matter financially, because she can afford it. But I think they would make the choice, but I think because of what happened last week and the pressure and the focus on Neil, they've kind of maybe they're like they said, taking their time because we were supposed to hear news last week about it. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
Let me actually just I'm going off the top of my head, but just going off what I remember quick saying like in a little bit more detail. He actually said he doesn't think Jody wants him fired, and it's not like her trying to just find a way around paying him, which is what a lot of people, including me, thought. He said he thinks it's probably someone else who's trying to get Neil canned, and Jody's more just doing her due diligence than actually targeting him. And then also, I believe he said that. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, sorry. I think he said that it's not like they haven't found too much on him because, like you said, it was supposed to be a short investigation, but then they kept expanding it because there wasn't enough evidence or quotes from people to fire him. He said something like no one in his entire tenure that has worked under him has quit because of that, and there hasn't been any HR complaints until now. So he thinks that he couldn't find anything, and then that's also what partly led to the other GMs getting together to make sure that no other owner gets a bright idea to just try to do a similar attack, if that's what was happening with us.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we're never probably gonna know for certain what's going on. We just have to hope that what they decide is what's best for the Blazers, and whether or not we like Olshey or not, they're not. These rumors that we hear aren't true until it's proven that they're true. So it could just be someone angry. It could be someone trying to start something. I mean, it could be thousands of things. But it's a weird situation.
I'm sorry, but Dan Dickow, he let a bunch of F-bombs. Stop crying.
Yeah, there's definitely some sensitive people, and I mean, not much you can do about that.
Right?
So
if that's the only evidence you got, it's you might as well skip.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking professional sports here. We're all grown adults, and I mean
Yeah,
that's
it's a
to
high
be
stress
expected.
environment too.
Yes, exactly. A lot of stress, a lot of pressure. So, something we all wanted to talk about. A crazy event that happened last night was the Detroit Pistons and Lakers game. We had LeBron James throw the people's elbow right into Isaiah Stewart's temple. And a fight broke out, and Isaiah Stewart went crazy and pretended like he was cooled off and was walking to the locker room, and then took off back at LeBron. To me, it was hilarious seeing LeBron hide behind the refs. Like when he ran at him a second time, you could see him push the refs kind of in front of him. Like it was like, dude, you're supposed to be this, you're supposed to be LeBron, this big guy, and you got this guy running at you, and you're hiding behind the refs. What was your guys' take on it? Rocky, let's start with you. When you saw it, what were you thinking?
Well, the first thing I saw was when when he when he took back off at him. First thing I saw was Russell Westbrook jump out there and getting Karate Kid type stance. I was like, really? You're gonna get squished, Russ. I thought that was just the funniest thing. Russell Westbrook trying to take on this big monster.
Squaring up.
I'll protect you.
The Fighting Irishman. I saw that.
That was brutal. And one game, if I saw something earlier today on Twitter, was that if that role was reversed and that was LeBron James's eye busted open like that, that guy would have got multiple games. He probably would have got a half a dozen game suspension.
Yeah, and Rocky's talking about the NBA announced today that LeBron is suspended 1 game for the elbow and Isaiah Stewart suspended 2. I do think they both should have been suspended. I do think Stewart probably should have had at least one more game than LeBron just because of the escalation of him
Agreed.
drawing it out and making it even worse than it was. I mean, I don't have an issue with them going at it right at the beginning, but when you're trying to walk away and pretending like you're cooling off and then running back at him, that's where you're making it a little bit worse. So I at least think they got it right as far as him having more than LeBron. But like you said, Rocky, if it was the other way around, that dude might not even be in the NBA anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Jared, how did you feel about that fight?
I mean, I didn't watch the game live, unfortunately. I wanted to watch that, and I saw, all the clips afterwards, and I agree. I mean, I think LeBron should have got 2 suspensions, and I think they've been calling him Beef Stew. That's his nickname now.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I saw something on Twitter about it, Beef Stew against the King or something like that. He should have gotten 3. Just how, and I know he's a young player. We see that with a lot of young players. That energy. I mean, that hit, like what Rocky said, that was a karate chip.
Yeah.
I mean, a karate chop, and like across the face. I mean, he started bleeding. I would be pretty pissed off too.
Yeah, it was a hard elbow, that's for sure. And it definitely wasn't an accident. You could see that he looked back kind of to locate him, and he swung that elbow.
Yeah,
he was
did.
aiming for the chest though, and I think like it was definitely intentional. But I think what's his name, Isaiah Stewart's head was a little bit lower than he anticipated. They were kind of locked up in arms too, so I think he was trying to shove him, and then he hit his face. Yeah, like if someone hits your face like that,
I
you're gonna get.
just now saw another replay of it, and it looked a little. They had it slowed down on NBA TV, and it looked like LeBron legitimately went right at his.
He looks
face.
frustrated. Yeah, he looks like he just kind of got frustrated that he was getting blocked up there, trying to get into the lane, and and he just swiped at him a little harder than usual.
Yeah. It was definitely there was a good amount of blood. There was
a lot of blood.
There it was definitely interesting. And this just brought up another thing I wanted to just quickly talk about. Did anybody see the Sacramento Kings fan blowing chunks all over the court?
I did.
No,
I did
I
not
missed
see it happen, but I definitely heard about it.
I saw the video and he emptied his stomach.
Yes,
he did. I would have thrown up myself
wow.
if I watched it.
I felt so bad for the people sitting next to him. The moment he threw up, those 2 people sitting next to him were just out. They were like, "Nope, no, thank you."
I would be too with that smell.
It was bad. There was so much.
And then Luke Walton gets fired the day after too.
Luke Walton.
Yeah. Fawad, is there anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, sure. One, I know we're just talking about around the league now, but going back to the Blazers just a little bit, how do you guys feel about Simons these last 5-6 games? He's kind of cooled off from the hot start. So do you think, are you guys concerned about him? Is it just a cold stretch, or is this him going back to normal and the start was just better than he actually
I've noticed that too. I've noticed that.
Think? Start with Jared.
Yeah, and I think we have to admit that Little has been catching fire, and he's been playing really well. He's got that same energy, almost like more explosive than Nance, and like you see it like every time. Even for myself, who does the NBA Top Shot selections, when it's just me and this other guy who select these moments for the official, people that work there to choose these moments. And we have Little dunks like every game. I mean, it's just so amazing to see him just, going out there and throwing that energy. Just it's really addictive to see. And so I think a little bit has brought in Simons' minutes down because of that. And I think also seeing Nance step up too. So, I mean, we're running CJ and Dame most of the time, and we're trying to get Norm minutes. So I definitely see it reducing a little bit, but hopefully he catches back in groove.
How about you?
Yeah, I've just never really been on the Simmons bandwagon. Um, uh, Danny Meringue is like all over that guy, like snake on glue or whatever. I don't know what we want to call it, but Danny Meringue is infatuated with Anthony Simons, and I think the kid's okay. I don't see I don't see the Damian Lillard effect in him like I see the what's been talked about lately, the Jerome Kersey effect in Monsieur Little. That I see way more than I do Damian Lillard in Anthony Simons. I just never
Interesting.
saw it.
The one thing I can say about Simons is he's still extremely young. So if anybody in the league right now with that amount of experience and his age, there's still room for him to improve even more.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we saw that his first rookie season, that game against Sacramento last of the
Exactly.
season, and that game was just, you could tell. I mean, he hadn't had a game. There wasn't a player until him. Before that, that was Dame who scored that many points, on a game like that, and all the crazy stats that came with that. And then the last couple seasons has been off and on, but I think this season, like we've seen the first 5 or 6 games, he was hot shooting it from 3. He was actually running point because I feel like I've seen him just run shooting guard the last couple of seasons under Stotts, and he's kind of switched from point guard, but it seems like he's always going to shooting guard because they're always setting him up for the 3.
Yeah, he's definitely played point way more than we're ever used to seeing. That's for sure.
Which is primarily what they got him for initially, was to be the backup point for Dame.
Right.
I think he has gone more into a shooting guard role the last couple of years, and now this year he's having to change it up again because Chauncey wants to see that point production in him because that's what he's supposed to be, is a point guard. And I think having somebody like Chauncey Billups teaching him now, I think could open that door for him to become more explosive. We all know how explosive he is at the rim, and he's got super hops.
Yep.
His ball handling at times can be a little less to be desired. But again, I think with someone like Chauncey, it could improve. It also could improve him for a big, he could be a big trade piece down the line. Not saying it's going to happen, but if you have the opportunity to pull the trigger on something big, and one of their points is they want somebody like Anthony Simons, you might have to look at it.
I agree
You might
100%.
have to.
Yeah, I think a lot of Blazer fans have thought about that. I mean, yeah, I was so glad they brought Dennis Smith Jr. I was really hoping for him to win that spot, on the roster, and it did. And I was just so glad because he's talented point guard and the minutes that we've seen him use. And so I'm like, why not combine them both? Have them switch point guards, have those two run on the bench. I don't know.
Well, and the biggest thing is we're in win now mode now. So keeping Simons for 3, 4, or 5 years from now isn't what we need. So if there's some kind of trade that gives us an even better opportunity to win now,
Right.
that's what we need. So
Right.
Yeah, because you could plug Dennis Smith Jr. into his minutes very easily.
Yeah.
Very easily.
We're gonna wrap this up. We're getting close to the time limit here, so I just want to give a shout out to Jared and Rocky. I appreciate both of you guys for saving some time to come and join and do this podcast with us. And when we have the next listener podcast, I hope you guys both join again, and we can have everybody in there at once and have a good time. But I appreciate both of you guys showing up.
Definitely.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for
Go
having us.
Blazers.
Go Blazers! So
Rip City.
See y'all tomorrow night.
that's right. We got a game tomorrow night. I believe it's against Denver, right?
Yeah, I'll be at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, look, here we go. Jared making me
Me
jealous
too.
again.
Jokic might not play though,
Well,
so
me
that
and
should be
Jared
all
probably
right.
both have season tickets.
Yeah, making me jealous every time. Yeah, Fawad mentioned Jokic might not be playing. That's a good point. So it's going to be an interesting game. They're down a lot of people right now.
Let's keep that win streak going.
4 in a row. All right, I appreciate you guys joining. Fawad, thanks for joining tonight. As always, Rip City, baby.